Hey guys, so welcome back to our tutorials. Today's tutorial, we are going to create this section. The section is called Browse Popular Categories. So if you have like a restaurant and you're selling some food online, this is a perfect section for you to use. So let's get started. So to get started, you can see I have a blank HTML template and a blank CSS file. This is not yet blank, but it's still just some boilerplate. So the very first thing we always do is to link our CSS file. And then let's go live so that we can see the changes. Something you might notice is that we do have some very beautiful underlines that are going through in the, you can see, I hope you can see that red underline. So, and also let's start with the font. The font you're using here is Poppins. So just head over to fonts.google.com and look for Poppins font. Just search Poppins. And then on the bottom, you can see get code. Because for some reason, my Poppins font is, this is my Poppins. So it is showing in Portuguese, but still it's okay. Get embed code and then make sure you only have the Poppins font, but you can use more fonts if you like. Then you can edit, and then you can select all the font families you want. So for instance, I only want 400, 500 and 600. I don't even care about italics. So after doing that, go to the import and then copy the import and paste it to your CSS file. Just like that. And then the next thing we always do, and we never forget about doing it, is to adding the default CSS style. So it's a margin of 0, padding of 0, and then a box sizing, the box. So these are just basic HTML, basic CSS styles. The next thing is that we grab the body and then add the font family as Poppins. Then as a fallback, we use sans serif. So if this is not reachable, maybe there is no internet, you can always default to sans serif. And then where did I get the Poppins? Go over here. You can see the font family is called Poppins. All right. So to get started is that this is a section. So we are trying to create a browser section or a page section. So you use a section tag. And then inside, let me give it a class of categories. All right. And then inside the categories, we have a heading level 2. The reason you're not using a heading level 1 is that a heading level 1 is commonly used on the top of the page. And then you just use it on top of the page. And then in the sections, use heading level 2 following each other. We write the first thing, which is browse categories. And the next thing, let's create now a div with a class of cards. Inside these cards, these are the cards we'll be using. So this will be represented by divs. And the first one, you always start with the image. So if you need the exact images that I've used, head over to github.com/TechWithTwin/TikTok-projects. And then look for a project that says food categories. Click on it. And then you'll see a folder called images. And then you'll see all these images there. So go ahead and download them if you're following along. And in my case, I'm just going to paste that in. So let me just add them. So just going to copy the folder and then you can see all the images are there. So then we are going to start with the appetizer. So the first category is appetizers. So we just go /images/appetizer.jpg. You can add an alt, you can say appetizer. And then after that, we just now have a paragraph that says appetizer. So we can go ahead and copy this down 3 more times. So we can just do 1, 2, 3. The next one was beverages. Then this one, you change it to pages. And then here you can say beverages. So the next thing is now the bread. So you just create here bread, and then the alt is the bread, then the text is the bread. So, and then finally, let's go to the pasta. We just do pasta. The alt is pasta. And then this one is pasta. And with that, guys, we are done with our HTML. So the next thing is that you can see these images are too large, so we can change their sizes directly from here. So we can just say a width of 100. And then you can see now they respect the sizes. So the next thing is that we need to give these categories some styles. And the first style we are going to add is, now let's start with the body. We make sure the body's elements are away from the edges, so we can add some padding, say padding to them. And then let's go to the categories div section. And then inside the categories, let's display it flex direction of column. Let's do some gaps. So this is the gap between the heading and the content. Let's do a gap of 0.5 rem. And then let's give it a max width. So a max width of 400 pixels so that they cannot take the whole width. So let's go to the body and then display flex here. Justify content to the center. You can see this one goes to the center. So the next thing is the heading. The heading is too large. So let's grab the heading. It was a heading level 2. We can say font size 1.5 rem. All right. The next thing is to display this 2 by 2. So how we can do that is that now we can grab the cards. How am I getting the cards? We have the cards div that holds each individual card. All right. So here we are going to display grid. So the reason I'm using grid is because in Flexbox, we have issues with padding and margins whenever we have complex layout. So what we are going to do here is display grid, and then we specify the number. We specify the number of columns we need. We want 2 columns. So how we can divide 2 columns is that the whole width of the element, so the whole width is always 100%. So we could use percentages and say 50%, 50%. So that means we need 2 columns that are equal in size. You can also use fraction. So you can use one fraction. This one will divide into 2 fractions that are equal, which is similar to what we have there. And then let's add a gap. Maybe you can say a gap of 8%. All right, so the next thing, let's grab the div. So this is the div that is inside the cards. So it's the cards and all these sibling divs. So we can grab the sibling divs by saying dot cards. And then you grab the div and then display flex. And then flex direction of column. Like that. And then let's align items to the center. All right, like that. And then let's give some gaps here and say gap 0.3 rem. All right, that looks nice. And then whenever you hover, the cursor is always pointer, because you want to, maybe later on you can add a link. So the next thing we need to work on is the image. It should be rounded, so we can just grab it from the cards, direct child div, and then we want the direct sibling of an image. So we get from the cards direct child div. So this one will match all these divs which are children, and then we match the image. So we can just do a width of 100%. So we wanted to fill the whole width like that. And then a border radius of 50%. Just like that. That looks a bit nice. So finally, let's go now to the paragraph. This paragraph needs to be uppercased. So you can say cards div and then paragraph. So how do we get this paragraph? So this is the cards, div, and then the paragraph. So on the paragraph, the main thing we want is to transform the text. And then we say text transform uppercase. So you can see it is uppercase. And then let's give it a position of relative. So we can say position of relative. The reason I'm giving it position relative, in the finished version, you can see that we have some very cool animations on the paragraph. So after doing that, let's now make sure that we can capture an event whenever someone hovers. Or maybe we can start with that design. So we can say cards, we grab the div, we grab the paragraph, and then we style its pseudo element. So we said that the reason we use pseudo elements is that because this strategy is used countless times, so we don't need to create a new, maybe a div, and then start positioning it obsolete to an element. The element already comes with two pseudo elements, the after and before. So the first thing we add here is the empty content because we don't want to show a new content, then position of absolute. Let's give it a height of 0.2 rem, a background color of red, and then a bottom of 0 and a width of 100%. So you can see it at all times, but what we want is that we don't want it to be shown at all times. We want the width to start at 0. So whenever you are doing animations, make sure you know what kind of an animation are you adding and where is it moving from to and to. So after doing that, we can now grab the hover state on the div itself. So we can say cards direct child div hover. So which is this div? This is the div that is cards, and this is the child div, and we are adding a hover state on it. And whenever it hovers, let's continue and grab the paragraph before, and then the very first thing we want to do whenever you hover over the div, we want to increase its width to 100%. So remember we added the width as 0, then now we are transitioning it to 100%. And to make this one, let me just save that. So if I hover, you can see it is just popping up. To make sure it is animated from one state to another, we just come to the before and say transition 0.2 seconds. And then guys, that's it. That's how we can create such a very beautiful section. Before I leave is that we want the categories to align the items to the center. So you can say center. All right, so that's it guys. That's how you can create such a section. So let me know in the comments what you think about this tutorial. Like, share, and comment down below. Thank you.